So I've come into the spare room to do my physio, and my gym ball needed pumping up. So as I was pumping up the gym ball, which is like, is that like pumping up the volume but less 80s inspired? I don't know. But as I was pumping up the gym ball, I noticed something that I've never noticed before. I've had this thing for like a year and I've never noticed this, but I can't not show you this. So on my gym ball, hang on, look. If you can see that, there is actually a 42 stamped on my gym ball. So it's either an omen or it's a sign that I can't even slack off in the comfort of my own spare room.
Are you ready? Do you want to do it? Are you ready? Yeah, yeah. Are you ready to rock? Yeah, yeah. Do you want to do it? Yeah, yeah. Get down on it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was the best day yet. I managed 12 minutes on my pedals at quite a clip. Proof that I'm not slacking off. That's attractive, isn't it? And also did my physio as well. So I did my physio first, which involved some squats, some things where you have to lie on your back and push the gym ball up and down the wall with your feet, which strengthens your leg and thigh muscles, calf and thigh muscles rather. And some bum lifts, which is really dignified, and some work on my shoulders with resistance bands, because obviously when you're on crutches, you're putting a lot of weight through your shoulders. Not so much with the smart crutches, which I'll show you later because they're very cool and very helpful for people with EDS, because they spread the weight across your whole forearm, so you're not putting all your weight through your hands and your thumbs, which for me as a musician is absolutely invaluable. So if there's any other musicians with EDS, there you go, there's a good tip. Try the smart crutch. They're not cheap, but they're worth their weight in gold. And this morning's workout partners were Star Child, and Kansas City Meltman. Both from the Lugano gig in 2010, which again, full of knackered old hits, but quite a nice gig in that Mike's back on keys, and there are a sort of few of the old ones to keep us diehards happy. And one thing I'm finding it quite hard to judge, and something that I noticed while I was doing the workout this morning, is that I'm finding it very hard to judge whether what I'm doing is effective, whether it's making a difference, and that for two reasons that I can think of. One related to EDS and one not. The not is that I've been a woodwind player for 35 years. I started when I was 7 and I'm 42 now, so this has obviously given me fairly good breath control. So the usual sort of litmus test, if you like, of can you hold a conversation while you're exercising? Well, yes I can, because I'm so used to having to control my flow of breath, etc. So that's a bit of an issue, but also the other thing is I'm on quite a hefty dose of beta blockers because of the EDS. One of the associated conditions that I have is some cardiac issues, which is a bit scary, but you learn to live with them. I have low atrial fibrillation, paroxysmal, which means it comes and goes, and also a degree of enlargement. For the sort of techies, health techies, I have a bit of left atrial dilation and left ventricular hypertrophy. So to counteract that, they've got me on quite a large dose of beta blockers, which makes me feel a bit crap, but also it keeps your heart rate quite low. The idea being that, you know, you don't want to work your heart too hard, you don't want to wear it out if it's already a bit dodgy. So consequently my heart rate never really gets above 60, 70 when I mean it's 60 most of the time, but when I'm exercising it only ever really goes up to 65 or 70. So I'm doing all the other stuff and I can feel my muscles working and I can feel that I'm getting tired, but how effective I'm being, I don't know. So if there's any other EDSs in a similar position that could offer some advice about that, that might be great. So please do feel free to have a waffle about that in the comments. There are a lot of things about EDS that I loathe, absolutely loathe. Perhaps the one that I loathe the most is the way that you can be going along having a perfectly good day and feeling positive and thinking, oh yeah, actually today's not so bad after all, and then it just turns on a sixpence for absolutely no reason. I decided today, because I was having quite a good day, I decided I was going to go shopping, and I went into Lewisham and I walked, I don't know how many meters it is, maybe 50 meters up and down the shopping centre, and the sheer amount of agony that caused just being stood up for that maybe 15 minutes it took me to do it. It's days like this when I start to think that perhaps I'm being stupid by trying to sort of battle against this, and perhaps there does come a time when general one has to admit defeat. Last year I was assessed for a chair. I don't even like to say it. Yeah. Sorry, I had to stop and collect my thoughts for a minute there. So last year I was assessed for a wheelchair. I went to the doctors and said, look, you know, I'm having a lot of trouble getting around. What can you recommend? So they sent me off to this assessment centre up in Crystal Palace, and to my surprise, I thought that I would get there and they would interview me. And at the end of it, they'd say, oh no, don't be silly, there's nothing wrong with you, you just need to try harder. You can manage quite well on the crutches you've got, which I had to buy myself, by the way. You know, because that's what I've always been told, is that, you know, you're making a fuss about nothing, there's nothing wrong with you, go home, you're anxious. But so I thought I would go there and they would sort of ascertain that I was swinging the lead, you know, or crying over spilt milk, or whatever euphemism you want to use for it. But no, to my surprise, they interviewed me, or it was more of a chat than an interview, and out they came with two wheelchairs for me to try. And excuse me, and it was a very strange experience, very, very weird. On the one hand, it felt like a life sentence. On the other, it felt like freedom. And there were these two competing emotions, and I couldn't make head nor tail of which one was going to win. I got as far as ordering it, and then I stopped it. I stopped the process a couple of weeks in. And I don't know why, because life would be so much easier if I did admit that there were things that I found difficult. I mean, for example, I can't get around my Sainsbury's anymore. It's a massive Sainsbury's, but that's not really the point. You know, it just causes too much pain and too much fatigue, and the consequences of that are too much these days. You know, I could be in a flare for a week after a trip around Sainsbury's, and that's just ridiculous, putting yourself in that position. But I don't know why I don't do it. They have the scooters in Sainsbury's that you can use. They said for our valued customers who would like a lift. And I don't. And I look at them every time I go in there, and I'm so tempted, because it would just be so easy to just get in one and sort of whiz around and do your shopping. And I don't. I struggle on the crutches, and I don't know why. Part of it, I think, is not wanting to admit defeat, as I've said before. And the other thing is, you know, who wants to be the fat bird in the scooter? People already kind of look at me on the crutches, and I know they do, and I can see them. They look at me, they look me up and down, and sort of I can see the internal tut going on, which isn't fun. So if it's bad enough on the crutches, I can't imagine how bad that would be in a chair. So there's a certain degree of not wanting to invite comments as well, which is really, really stupid, because if that's stopping me from being able to do things that other people are doing, then why would I give a crap what anybody else thinks? But I do, and perhaps because this is still quite a recent thing for me, I haven't come to terms with it yet, I don't know. But it's something I need to work on. So if anybody else has been through that, I'm sure a lot of people have had that internal struggle going on. You know, the first phrase that came to mind there was give up, which isn't right. But do I acknowledge that actually, yes, this is what I need to make my life easier, or at least on a par with everybody else's? I mean, it would be nice to be able to go shopping without having to give up after 15 minutes, you know. So perhaps it is something to think about. I don't know. But anyway, the whole point of this sort of waffle today is I stood up for 15 minutes today, and it was so agonising that I actually gave up in Boots. I was going to Boots to get some painkillers because I didn't have them with me. And I went to Boots, and I got halfway across the shop floor in Boots and saw the pharmacy was all the way over the other side, and I actually gave up. I just couldn't face the walk across the shop. So I'm starting to think now, how the bloody hell am I going to stand up for 3 hours at the gig? It's not that far away. It's 6 months away, 7 months away. I don't know. Is it doable? I hope so.
You got to take care of yourself.